You've just entered the Extra Zone Arcade. We're now roughly at the halfway point in the Mario 40th Anniversary Retrospective, so what better time to talk about the game that goes back to the series' roots? Last time, we talked about Super Mario Sunshine, a game I've gone back and forth on over the years. Finally, I settled on it being a game I liked overall, but with too many glaring issues to put it anywhere near my favourites. It's a game I played a lot over the years, but the same can't be said about today's entry. So, how did New Super Mario Bros. Come to be? It all started in early 2006 with the announcement of a brand new 2D Mario game, 13 whole years after Super Mario Land 2. And here we were thinking the Mario and Luigi series was dead after only a 5-year absence. At the time, it seemed likely that 2D Mario was dead and buried because of the way the industry was moving. In the late 90s and early 2000s, 2D games were seen as cheap and lesser compared to those fancy new 3D games, especially in the West. This meant there was significantly less of a market for 2D platformers, and many developers were way more enthusiastic for 3D capable systems. Nintendo wanted to break the mold and prove that there was still a place for side-scrolling action in the industry. This new game would use 3D character models, but the environments had detailed sprite work reminiscent of past titles. Even the soundtrack, composed by Asuka Ota and Hajime Wakai, gave off the same energy we've been used to in those early games. Koji Kondo directed them, so that ship was very tightly steered. Speaking of which, this would be the first 2D Mario with Takashi Tezuka as the general producer since he succeeded Miyamoto. I forgot to mention back in the 64 episode that it was the last game to have Miyamoto produce it. Since then, he's essentially just been the overseer of the franchise. It seems like this game was in the best of hands, but were they able to deliver on this return to form? Let's talk about it. My personal experience with New Super Mario Bros. Is probably one of the least of all the games we're going to talk about. I had actually only played a handful of levels in this game either via mobile phone emulators or trying it on a friend's DS. Yeah, despite having a DS myself, I never owned this game. As I mentioned back in the very first episode of this series, I really am doing a lot of callbacks, huh? I pretty much exclusively own licensed games. That's because they were usually much cheaper, and as I've mentioned in basically every episode to this point, we were broke as shit. It's all I could afford. So it wasn't actually until the Mariothon playthrough that I would experience this game for the first time. Yeah, I didn't even play through it during my off-stream 2020 marathon. Actually, I didn't play any of the handheld games for that, as I'd play the 2 LAN games for the first time in the following year. As for the next handheld game we'll talk about, I never even touched that game until the Mariothon. I'm getting way ahead of myself now, aren't I? Here's what I thought about New Super Mario Bros. After my very first playthrough of it. Okay, we did it. New Super Mario Bros. Look man, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't have that much fun, but the reason is mainly just because I was really rushing to get to Galaxy. Like, I really wanted to just finish this game, get it out the way, and just go to Mario Galaxy. Look, I know I got very heated and harsh at the game, but this game is fine. I don't think it's great, and it's not bad, but like, it's just fine. I think the other new Super Mario Bros. Games are better. This is probably the weakest out of all of them, if I can be honest. Oh, there's also that he feels very floaty, but like not in the good way where it's like precise. The enemy placement. Enemy placement is very bad in this game. It like especially close to the end. They have some really obnoxious enemy placements, and again, there's also the difficulty spike, but it's probably just because I skipped like a couple of the worlds here and there. But yeah, this game it's okay. It's just okay. Like, it's fine. Clearly, I wasn't enthusiastic about this one, though a big reason was because of the nature of how I played it. Being the 10th game in a series I was playing week in and week out, and also between 2 games that, for better or worse, I have a lot more bias towards, this one just didn't hit. But how about now? It's the 10th game in a series that I'm playing week in and week out between 2 games that, for better or worse, I have more bias towards, except this time I'm 100%ing them. That means I had to take my time, really let the intention of the game sink in. With that mindset, what did I think of it this time? The game begins with an opening cutscene where Mario and Peach are taking a leisurely stroll through the Mushroom Kingdom. The piece doesn't last long, as a conspicuous cloud strikes the castle with lightning. Mario rushes over to investigate? I'm not really sure what running towards this disaster was going to accomplish, but with the plumber distracted, the princess is abducted once again. Her captor is none other than Bowser Jr., who no doubt had some help in this scheme from his father. Mario turns his attention back to find Peach gone, and a chase through various landscapes ensues. Bowser is fought in the first world and has his skin violently melted off upon defeat. Yeah, forget what I said about Goopa Bloopa's flailing tentacles being the most gruesome thing in this series. That honor goes to this shit. So, he becomes Dry Bowser, and we fight him again at the end of the game. After he's taken apart, Junior uses a magic pot to resurrect his dad, this time with his flesh intact. Defeating the father-son duo finally frees the princess, and they can live again in peace until the next episode of this series drops. So, pretty much the most average of Mario plots out there. Dry Bowser is a pretty cool addition to the lore, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, he gets melted down to a skeleton just from falling in lava. He's been able to tank that very same thing in the past, and not only that, he can breathe fire. His body temperature should be more than enough to handle lava, unless the stuff he falls in here is like advanced lava. He has a cool design though, so I really don't care. Feels weird to already be at this point in the video after the last one, but it's time to talk about that gameplay. We're going back to basics in this one, but with some nice new additions. You can run, sprint, jump and crouch just like the old days. The wall jump, ground pound and triple jump have also been added, but there aren't really a whole lot of opportunities to properly utilize the latter. Mario's ground control is off. It almost feels like a weird blend between Mario 1 and 3 in that he has the kind of sluggishness from the first game, but the floatiness of the third. Even when you do get up to speed, it feels kinda slow still, like the game plays as if you're underwater. Turning around and picking up speed feels slow, all of Mario's animations feel like they're at half speed. It just feels really weird. Not necessarily bad, just different. The levels mostly accommodate for the game feel, so I don't feel a lot of my deaths were due to the controls. I get this was probably done because of the smaller screens, and snappier actions would be harder to read, but it just never quite sat right with me. That feeling is doubled when you actually are underwater. You'll be drifting around as you fight the controls more than you do any one of the enemies in these stages. These are just not great to play at all. The regular stages are pretty good on the whole, the sections that are really satisfying to clear using your kit. This game once again has a flow state you can get into, just like previous 2D games, that can make traversing these levels flawlessly really exhilarating. Though it can be pretty hard to find that state. Not because of the level design itself, but because of the enemy placement. There are some seriously obnoxious moments in this game where it almost feels like the devs field tested spots where you'd most likely get hit. Sometimes enemies will just drop in on you from off screen with barely any time to react, or there'll be way too many of them in one spot, meaning getting through unscathed is almost impossible. World 8-4 is the absolute worst because it has both of these issues in the form of a single type of enemy. If that wasn't annoying enough, these scuttlebugs move super erratically, so even once you get over them, another might unexpectedly charge you before you can react. This is easily the hardest level in the game just because of them. The actual layout of the stage is barely an issue. There's also one particular star coin here that, I kid you not, took me almost 2 straight hours of gameplay to get because of how you need to do it. It's the third and final coin of the level and requires a mini mushroom, one of the new power-ups, to duck into this pipe. You need to navigate these moving bridge platforms while scuttlebugs drop in, bearing in mind, you can't get hit with a mini mushroom or you'll die. Yeah, that scene from the Mario movie still bothers me to this day, like that's not how that works. Mario's floatiness has also increased tenfold with the mini mushroom, making navigating this treacherous area insanely difficult. No exaggeration, this challenge was up there with the Sunshine Pachinko machine for me. It was that bad. To make matters worse, I had another Sunshine moment where my game actually crashed after I collected this coin for the first time. I think it goes without saying, but I was on the brink of a generational crash out. Anyway, I'll talk more about star coins later. For now, I want to talk about power-ups. So yeah, the mini mushroom obviously shrinks Mario down below his normal state, allowing you to fit into much tighter spaces. Like I said, it also makes his physics a lot more floaty, and gives him the ability to sprint on the surface of water. I don't really like the power-up too much. It ends up being situational and only really used to grab a handful of star coins, and if anything, is a liability because taking damage with it will kill you. The reward you gain from it doesn't match the risk at all. The Super Mushroom, Fire Flower and Starman are back, so 2D Mario tradition is kept intact, but now you can equip a blue Koopa shell as a power-up. This lets you slide around super fast while protecting you from enemies. The trade-off for that speed is that it's very unwieldy, and in more precise sections you do not want this thing on. If you so much as hold the sprint button for more than 2 feet, you're shooting off with this thing at full speed, and the only way to stop is to let go of the button. By the time you do that, you're probably already careening off to your demise. Once again, it feels like they were trying to do a risk and reward thing with this power-up, and although I think the reward is way cooler and more satisfying than the mini mushroom, it's still a power-up I'm not all that keen to use. Okay, we're 0 to 3 on the new power-ups in this game. Can we bring it back with the Mega Mushroom? This power-up was pretty much the main selling point of this game, being front and center on the box art and in all the promotional material. Surely they cooked up something special this time. It's used in all 3 levels in the entire game. Sure, you can get it in other levels, along with every other power-up, with these flying red boxes, but most of the levels just simply aren't built with this thing in mind. The few levels where you do get to use it to its fullest potential do allow for some fun and destructive supersized carnage, but it genuinely has the least presence of all the power-ups in this game. It's so weird because none of the other USP abilities Mario has gotten over the years have this problem. Thinking back to the Super Leaf, Cape Feather, Carrot and even the Wing Cap, they all got plenty of use in their respective games. And with 4 levels designed entirely around them at that. The Mega Mushroom just doesn't have that for some reason, so as much as I want to love this power, the game doesn't give me a chance to. So yeah, pretty unfortunate and underwhelming selection here. In my opinion, this is the weakest selection of power-ups in 2D Mario, short of the first 3 games, as even the later NSMB games pick up the slack considerably. It feels like they adopted the issue they were having with adapting power-ups into 3D, with them all just feeling extremely situational and having little impact on the level design. Historically, that hasn't been an issue in prior 2D games, or ones that had come later, so it stands out as especially off-putting here. The world map returns from Mario 3, World and Land 2, but has been made completely linear. You can still skip levels though, and actually even entire worlds. As a matter of fact, you will be skipping a couple of them just by playing the game normally. You see, secret exits are back and work pretty much the same as in World, with them opening up paths to other levels, the returning toad houses, and warp cannons. 2 of the secret exits located in the World 3 and World 5 castles require you to beat them as Mini Mario, sending you to World 4 and World 7 respectively. Beat them normally and you could watch the credits roll without so much as setting foot in either world. I don't like this approach at all. Unlocking a whole new special world was your reward for finding secret exits back in World, and now all you get is basic worlds that you should just unlock by progressing. They would learn from this in the future new soup entries. Secret exits are once again required for 100% completion, although it takes the form of a 3-star save file this time around. So, beating the game earns you 1, taking all the exits nets you another, and finally, collecting and spending all your star coins will get you the 3rd. You spend your star coins at the blue toad house that appears in World 1 after beating Bowser. It basically gives you some fun little backgrounds to put on your bottom screen. This is essentially your 100% reward, and honestly, it's cool. Nothing crazy, but I'll take it. Just beating the game already unlocks Luigi as a playable character, so I didn't need much more on top of that, because that's the GOAT right there. This time, the big little bro has no gameplay differences, so choosing which one you want to use is just a matter of preference. Overall, I would say the 100% journey was fun, and allowed me to experience a lot more of what this game had to offer than my first playthrough. I found myself taking in and understanding the level mechanics a lot more, and having more fun as a result. Sure, there were some levels where pretty much the entire enjoyment I got from it was just hunting down star coins, but on the whole, there were some bangers here. Of course, you have your typical grassland, desert, forest, lava and sky levels, but Rocky Mountains and Ghost Houses return from Super Mario World and are just as much fun here as they were there. One detail I like is when in a ghost house, your map is obscured, which adds to that feeling of being lost and confused in these haunted mazes. New to this game are beach levels. I guess there was the Seaside Kingdom and Turtle Zone in the land games, but it's nice to finally have them with some more visual clarity. World 3A was the level that stood out to me for having some fun and well-hidden star coins. It's also one of those levels where everything just flows really nicely if you know what you're doing. 4-2 is another favourite for the same reason, with the added challenge of these tilting mushroom platforms. My heart always skips a beat with how fast they dip down when standing on an edge. There's a star coin you have to grab, then jump off at the last minute before it dips too far down and you can't get back to safety. It's very platform focused in general, and surprise surprise, that's when the game is at its absolute best. 7A clearly takes some inspiration from Mario 3's 7-1, as it's a level that takes place in an underground network of pipes. This level is definitely more challenging and really puts your precision to the test without pushing past the limits of what the game's control allows. As is the case with all 2D Mario games, not all levels are made equally. The aforementioned 8-4 is definitely my least favourite level in this game. Like I said before, that almost entirely comes down to the bullshit enemy placement and final star coin. The runner-up for that title would have to be 4-3 for being an underwater auto-scroller. 2 platform level types I really don't care for, all rolled into one. If this level doesn't kill you out of boredom, the sheer number of Unagi eels definitely will. Mega Unagi takes up like half the screen, so you better make sure you're ready for him, especially with this game's sluggish underwater controls. Not to mention, every star coin in this level pretty much requires you to get it perfectly and on time, or you'll probably die for it. Back to level types, fortresses, now known as towers, and castles make their return, and house the various bosses in this game. Bowser Jr. is almost always fought at the end of a tower, and has 2 different battle modes. When his face is exposed, his strategy will be to charge at you and retreat into his spiked shell when hit. If he's masked up, he will lob green shells at you that you have to fire back at him, leaving him vulnerable to attack. You fight his pops in the first castle, like I mentioned back in the story segment, and his moveset is more or less the same as OG Super Mario Bros. He shoots fireballs while slowly pacing back and forth, with the best way to beat him being to run under him as he leaps up, and hit the switch to collapse the bridge. Mama Pokey found in World 2's castle is a wrapped up and more powerful version of the Pokey introduced back in Mario World. He spits rocks at you and buries underground at various depths. If he goes deep enough for you to reach, stomp the top of his head to put him back to sleep. Next up is Cheap Skipper, a giant ugly Cheep with an even uglier temper. All you gotta do is stomp him out as he tries to leap at you. Mega Goomba is as cut and dry as it gets. Hit the switch to spawn platforms that will get you up to his noggin, and give it a bonk 3 times. PT Piranha returns from Super Mario Sunshine and is honestly way more of a pushover here. He flies around and will try to use Mario's own combat methods against him. Simply dodge and watch as he flips over, freeing him up for an attack. Monty Tank is probably the scariest motherfucker in this game, as he tries to run you down while shooting heavy artillery. Once you stomp his head, he'll enter a rage mode for a bit, where he violently does donuts in the tank while rapid firing bullet bills. The tank also gains a new tier the further you make it into the fight, which ramps things up dramatically. Try to make quick work of this psycho so you can move on to the next world. Lacquer Thunder rides a storm while lobbing spiny balls at you. If that fails, he'll try to fry you with a lightning shot, and his swoop attack is your opening to dish out the pain. Lastly, we have Dry Bowser and not so giant Bowser, who fights alongside Junior in the final level. Dry Bowser mostly fights the same as his flesh counterpart, with the addition of a bone throw attack. Hit the switch to collapse the bridge and he'll fall to pieces real quick. After Junior throws his father's remains into an urn, it turns out to actually be a magic pot that revives the Koopa King in all his glory, but this time, he's looking a little heavier. At first, he mostly hangs back while his boy fights, but once the little devil is taken care of, Papa doesn't hold back. And by that I mean he fights almost entirely the same, but shoots out several more fireballs. Wait for him to leap up, pass under, hit the switch, free the princess, and that is New Super Mario Bros. I already talked about some of the post-game stuff, if you want to call it that, so I'll take this time to talk about one of the game's more memorable features. There is a multiplayer mode that I hear is pretty fun, but I've never personally tried it, so not much to say there. What I can say is an absolute blast are the minigames. If you've played Mario 64 DS, a lot of these will feel familiar to you. Quick side note, I didn't cover 64 DS during the 64 episode simply because I've never played it, and from what I know, it's almost an entirely different game. It controls different, is structured different, has multiple playable characters, and a whole bunch of new missions added. It's less of a remake and more of a reimagining, and I don't think I could have fit that organically into this series. I may cover it sometime in the future though if you guys want to see that. Anyway, there are also some mini games added here, but I want to highlight my favourite one, Wanted. I ended up playing way more of this than I needed to while getting footage and almost missed dinner because of it. I got up to level 45, so tell me if you can beat that in the comments. I love that there are actually entire social media pages dedicated to running this game for you to play on your feed. That's cultural impact, which is something this game has in spades. I mean, out of every Mario game out there, this is probably the one I've seen the most references to out in the wild. Whether it's music from the game being used in TikToks or people talking about their nostalgia with it, this game is almost inescapable. It's no big question as to why that is, since the game sold over 30 million copies, which places it as the 4th best-selling game in the entire series. It might have even been second at one point, just behind the one that started it all. The game, to no one's surprise, also reviewed really well across the board. It was praised for being a nostalgic return to the series' roots, while providing enough to stand out as something distinctly of the modern age. While I mostly agree with that sentiment, there are just a few too many things that bother me about this game. Time for the bombshell. I think this game is just kinda aight. The levels for the most part were well designed, but I feel didn't fully utilize Mario's moveset, or use the DS's unique selling point to its advantage. The bosses had cool and varied designs, but amounted to stomp the guy's head 3 times and you win. And there's the lackluster new power-ups, weird character physics, and shoddy enemy placement that make this game a hard sell for me to want to revisit after this. Don't get me wrong, this game has its moments where it's up there with the likes of Mario 3 and Land 2, and never dips to the subpar quality of Mario 2 and Lost Levels. But it just doesn't have that moment that most Mario games do where everything clicks and you're having a blast. I just kind of felt nothing while playing this. This could be because of something I dubbed the new Super Effect. See, this particular subset of Mario games became known for being bland and repetitive, which is in no way a fault of this first game. But it kinda gives a feeling where if you've played one, you've essentially played them all. So considering I played New Super Mario Bros. Wii and U before this one, it's harder to go back to this on the merit that it was the first to do these things in this particular way. Not to mention the later games would refine some of the more glaring issues I had with this one. It's one of those games where I can't see myself replaying it unless I had to for one reason or another, such as this series. That being said, I did have my fun with it. And again, by no means is this a bad game. At worst, it's just a good little time waster that you'll probably forget all about once it's wrapped up. And I think that's what will happen as we move into the outro.
Nintendo DS New Super Mario Bros. 怒っちゃった
And that's another episode of the Mario 40th Anniversary Superspective for the books. Let me know what your opinion is on New Super Mario Bros. Down in the comments. It's a game that, while good, didn't do much for me, but I know a lot of people have fondness for it. I'd love to learn more about why that is. While you're down there, make sure to drop us a quick sub so that, like Mario grabbing a Mega Mushroom, we can grow to new heights. Speaking of heights, we'll be heading into the stars for the next episode of this series. Until then, be easy, and I'll see you there.